Thank you. Opening up to any questions, comments, reactions. I still consider myself very much a learner in this space, so I'm also interested in hearing from all of you about strategies, things that have worked, challenges, anything like that. I'll just open up the floor.
Pam, that was a fantastic presentation, by the way. In a small amount of time, you gave a lot of information, so thank you.
Thank you. I did let people know that you're my colleague, so.
Okay, she didn't pay me to say that.
Not necessarily unsolicited, but I appreciate that, Marie.
No, it was really both presentations were quite good.
I'll start the ball rolling.
Yeah, Kathy.
I'm Kathy Woods Goodwin, a former patient at Fairlawn Rehabilitation Hospital in Worcester, and I've been a member of their Patient Family Advisory Council for 10 years now, and I've chaired it for a couple of years. The pandemic certainly interrupted one of the initiatives that we had started, which was to go around periodically and talk with patients and families, and just be the one group maybe that came in and didn't have something to say to them, like, okay, you've got this appointment at this time, and then you need to stop for lunch and then take the medicine, and then we're going to the hospital. But to ask them, how is it going? How are you? How is your family dealing with this? That the pandemic did put that on hold for a couple of years. We're gradually getting back to expanding that program. But frankly, the headline of this particular meeting leapt out at me as something that I am very eager to begin doing, which is identify what really are the needs of our PFAC, rather than merely attending meetings every other month, but to re-energize the committee following the pandemic. And that's all.
Thank you, Kathy. I think that's a common challenge that we heard. We also did some work because our survey had the fortune and misfortune of being fielded in early 2020. We were in the field. Well, actually, it was right before COVID hit. And so we did add some questions about how COVID had affected PFACs. And for some hospitals, they were able to transition to virtual meetings. That had been something that they were thinking about, actually from a diversity and inclusion perspective, recognizing that it was hard for people to get to PFAC meetings. So those hospitals had some of the infrastructure in place to transition. Other hospitals, it was really very challenging, and they did experience sort of a drop off in PFAC work that they're working to rebuild. And what I love about what you shared, Kathy, is that part about going around and talking to patients and families, and that's part of the, the relationship building. You said, they often don't have people asking about them, but if you have somebody going around and asking about them, making that connection and building that relationship, I think that's an important part of understanding, of helping people understand what an advisor might do, but also introducing the opportunity and just, building relationships with people that we can build on over time. So thank you for sharing that.
Hi, Pam.
Hi.
My name is Kathy, and one of the issues we dealt with was not having current demographics. So we have been working diligently with the hospitals to provide that. And I don't know where people are in the hospitals with that idea of getting it more current.
Kathy, when you say current demographics, do you mean for your patient population or for your advisor population, or both?
Well, for both. We visually can see advisors, and we're doing quite well with our diversity. But one of the things I think that it didn't seem to be important because our numbers were 4 years old, or, so they are moving up to try to get this as current as possible for us, so we can know what levels in our community we should attack first to try to get them involved. Excuse my voice.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Katie, I'm so glad you raised your hand because I was about to call on you to share. So would love to hear from you.
Sure, I was just gonna say, so my name is Katie Litterer. I had a hard time answering question number 2 because I have a personal journey. I'm a patient parent of identical twin girls who are about to turn 16, and they've received a lot of care at a lot of hospitals, a lot of inpatient, a lot of outpatient, and we're doing wonderfully with the support of our village. But my personal journey ended up bringing me to healthcare. And if you told me 16 years ago I was going to ever work in healthcare, I would have laughed out, like belly laughed out loud. But I'm now the program manager for family partnerships at Boston Children's Hospital. And I have experience both serving on specialty family advisory councils, our hospital-wide family advisory council, and I am lucky to be able to be mama hen basically to our hospital-wide family advisory council and our e-advisors program right now. And we started our ED&I journey in 2019. And we ran into those same challenges where we felt like our demographics were a little bit out of date. And then we started focusing on those really top layers of what diversity meant to many of us who, let's be real, they all looked like me. We all drove our station wagons from our suburban homes into the city because we had the time and the resources to be able to give our time to the hospital. And we knew it. We looked around the table and we were like, this isn't real. It's not real. And so we started our journey focusing on racial and ethnic diversity. And interestingly enough, several years, this year, as we are recruiting, we have a representative group. We're very proud of it, but we'll never be totally representative. We'll always be striving to incorporate new voices. And our membership really acknowledges that. But they've also said we want to stop focusing on what we look like because, I have members who, they look like me, but their children don't look like them. And their spouses or their partners may not look like them. We have adoptive parents who adopted out of the foster system, out of the hospital, and they have very different experiences. And then to so many of the factors that Pam spoke about that go beyond the color of our skin or the languages that we speak. So we've actually, in the coolest way, started to evolve our definition of what diversity means. And I feel like each year we actually have a dedicated committee and they look at our demographics at the hospital and they look at the demographics of our membership. And if we could pick needles out of a haystack, they identify which voices they'd like to see. But we certainly welcome the voices that are available and the right voices at that moment in time. But I just have personally and professionally found it so interesting that the definition of diversity is a little bit fluid and it depends on the work that we're doing and the conversations that we're having. And I've just really appreciated that perspective from our membership.
Well, one day someone told me it's not about color, and I went, I know, I have a special needs son, we have deafness. We were happy to get a man. I mean, we have a lot of those now, but it is different.
It's funny, I try to tell people that diversity, if you look at the beginning, it's DI, and DI is about differences. So it's about differences. If people would think of diversity that way.
Thank
I
you.
have a question
Thank
for you,
you.
Pam.
Yes.
You mentioned the community-based groups, and I wanted to know how that bringing those, because remember we talked about this and I said, why aren't we flipping it and going out to the community? So in that, and it is differences, like if people can't get in, what do we learn from them? How is that translated to bring back to the hospital after you engage with the community members?
So I think there are two different, probably not only two different models, but there are some hospitals that have really thought about it just in terms of location and recognizing that maybe their hospital campuses are not the easiest to get to for whatever reason. I live in North Carolina and UNC is my closest hospital, and parking at the main hospital is an adventure in and of itself. Laverne, I don't know, you look like you might be from this area. I see you nodding.
I just moved from North Carolina to here.
Okay,
Boston.
yes. So, that may be a barrier. So some hospitals have started experimenting with, are there locations out in the community where we can ask people to go, where parking might be easier? It just feels a little bit more friendly. It's not quite so cumbersome. So that's one model. Then there's another model where people are really thinking about, not just taking their traditional PFAC structure and moving the location out in the community, but thinking about the structure a little bit differently. So are there community members who are interested in kind of sharing experiences about and providing input and feedback to the hospital about the issues that advisors might work on, but maybe in a less, formal way. So they're not going through a background check. They're not saying, we would like you to show up at X number of meetings. If you can come, you can come. If you can't come, you can't come. If you want to bring somebody else, a family member or a friend with you, come. We're here to learn from the community. In those situations, the PFAC coordinator is typically there and has been kind of responsible for bringing the feedback back. And the one hospital that I'm thinking about that is doing this, I'd actually be really interested, and I can ask her further whether she's thought about having any of her other advisors kind of come with her to some of these community meetings and have more of a formal bridge back to the council that just doesn't rely on her. So, because I do think that's an excellent question, Linda, when you set up specialty councils or any type of other structure, making sure that the voices and perspectives, the input is, being translated and transferred, that information can be used. So it's not just a check the box, like, here we held a meeting, but no, we received this input. We learned this from the meeting. This is how we're going to act on it. And then also being, of course, able to share it back to the group. So.
Yeah, I was thinking that would be motivating to keep them engaged if they know that their voices have been heard and acted upon, I would imagine.
Yes.
Being a white woman and not having any cultural background per se, I don't have any clue.
So the follow-up to that, Linda, I mean, when your PFAC members come back, is leadership with them at your meetings?
I think that's a great question, Glenda. I think that and Pam, you can probably speak to this as well, but I think when leadership shows up at meetings, that sends a big message. So and the PFAC members are like, wow, okay, they're hearing us and they're listening to us.
Because at our PFAC, and I'm at the hospital-wide PFAC level, the CEO is at every one of our meetings.
That's great. That's
So
really great.
therefore, and I clearly have been heard. So I start to hear them repeating some of my words. I see it through others in the hospital, stating what I may have said in another meeting. But that's what I think is really important, is that leadership and the connection that, every PFAC member feels that their voice is being heard.
I think that's so important. And Kathy, I'll come to you next. Glenda, I wanted to say one other thing. We did talk to one or two hospitals that didn't have a standing community council, but they had held meetings out in the community to try to learn from patients, community members, families. And hospital leadership did attend those. They said it was really well received. Their role to be there, the PFAC coordinators who shared this with us said that they prepped leadership, that their role was, they were largely in listening mode. They were not there to give a presentation, to, do a marketing spiel, that they were there to really listen and understand. And they said that, made a big difference. So thank you for raising that, because I think that's a really critical part of it.
But then I have a question after Rosemary. I don't want to jump into.
Let's do Kathy, Rosemary, and Glenda. I'll come back to you.
I just wanted to say that I forgot that we have a staff leadership, not at the C level, that attend our meetings, and I just realized they're very diverse. So our group is experiencing that as well. And I think that that's comfortable for our new members that are joining us.
Yes, the leadership of the PFAC and leadership in general and who is sitting around the table is so important. Rosemary, then Glenda, then Sabrina.
Hi, I've been involved with the PFAC that I'm on for quite a lot of years, since its formation, actually, and I'm now the patient co-chair of that committee. We've found that since COVID, we've been meeting by Zoom. In many ways, that's been advantageous because it's made it easier for the group to join the meetings. It's, I think, made it more inclusive because of that. But it's also kind of, because we're not involved in a direct way in the hospital as much, I think it's made it more difficult for recruiting. We used to recruit more from the volunteer groups. We recruited from connections we made in the hospital. We had some people recruited through survey responses, but now we're more relying on hospital staff to recruit people for us. Do you have any suggestions on the best ways to try and get the word out to the staff in the hospital that we need members, and also that diversity is definitely something we're looking for?
Yes, and I welcome others to chime in on best ways to sort of make this more front and center for staff who are so busy and thinking about so many different things. But I'd say some of the things are just making sure that in general, the work of the PFAC is visible. So, you know, it's included in newsletters, it's shared with staff and employees in various ways, it's shared with the community. As I think I mentioned that there are a couple of hospitals who really specifically met with several, I think they had small group meetings with staff around some of their goals for increasing PFAC diversity, and you know, did sort of even like a mini presentation, just a 5-minute, you know, this is what we're looking for in terms of increasing diversity. This is why we're putting a priority on this and why it's really important for us moving forward. This is how you can help. This is kind of what we're looking for. So just having those kind of direct conversations and, you know, bringing it up again and again and again, not just sort of a one-time thing, but I also welcome others who might have suggestions there to chime in. Katie, I see a thumbs up.
Oh, I'm just echoing. I think we can't ask enough. And if I would to add anything, it's been really okay. Like, I have gone to so many stakeholders and said, I really need, you know, I need a single parent without a car. Like, I need this voice. And we are welcome. If you have a family member who can bring a great perspective and can listen as well as they can share, then I want to talk to them. But we have specifically identified this perspective that we would absolutely love to welcome in case you happen to know of somebody who fits that, who kind of fits that profile. And you can, I mean, you can say this stuff in a nice way that and source some really wonderful people, and people appreciate being asked as well. I have found that in our organization.
And I think it is important to ask with a specific request. So just saying, you know, we're recruiting to diversify the PFAC, that's very broad. And that still may not get you some of the voices and perspectives that you're looking for. So, you know, being as specific as you can with that request. It's a little bit out of order, but I know I had said Glenda and then Sabrina. So Glenda, I'll come back to you.
Oh, you're coming back to me now. Okay. So just to add to that, one of the things that we did, there was actually a video and a picture, I think, of me that's like in the cafeteria that quotes why I feel that it's the value of the patient, of the PFAC. So, and there's, I think it's other places throughout the hospital. So you might want to think about how do you promote PFAC to just the hospital as a whole, patients as well. What I was going to ask, the question that I was going to ask though was, I was interested in when you're talking about you had ethnic specific PFACs. Because again, what I find is that it's still a challenge to get Asian and Middle East representation. So, you know, so when you mentioned that, that kind of struck me because, again, you know, I'm thinking that sometimes people are more comfortable in their own, I'm going to say, community. So if you start to have more ethnic specific for some of the population you might be targeting for, then maybe that's a way to bridge them to later come to the larger PFAC community. So I was just I wanted to hear more about that.
I will say, I don't think there's a correct answer here. So we heard from some hospitals that were, you know, really embracing and exploring specialty PFACs as a way to create more safe and inclusive spaces. And we did hear from other hospitals that they were concerned that setting up too many specialty councils was kind of just creating more division and putting people into a group and not kind of fostering some of the dialogue that needed to happen. So for specialty councils, we always recommend that, you know, there's a liaison to a larger hospital-wide council regardless, which I think can be part of that. But I also don't think that there's one right decision. So the University of Rochester, they have a couple of good presentations and podcasts. There's one, I think, that was done for RWJ, where they talked about the process of developing some of their specialty PFACs and the thought that went into it, particularly around the Black and African American PFAC. And this, you know, they engaged a consultant, somebody who was, you know, out in the community to really sort of understand the needs and thoughts about developing this type of specialty PFAC. And it was, you know, really a very intentional process where they were considering both the benefits and then also the risks of potentially doing this. And again, it may be a situation where people are, you know, there may be certain populations and communities that aren't really comfortable with the structure of a traditional PFAC. So it might, again, be something else to consider. I know I'm running close on time, so I'm going to stop there because Sabrina has been patiently waiting and I want to make sure that we get to her. Sabrina.
Thank you so much. And it's kind of related to a couple of the other recent questions. Is this, you know, the majority of our PFACs and majority of PFACs that I've heard about from other institutions are English speaking and conducted in English. And I wonder if anyone has had any luck or experience with trying to diversify the PFACs in terms of language, whether that be exclusively Spanish speaking, for instance, PFAC, or having Spanish speakers with interpreters or other languages. That's kind of the example.
Yes. And Katie, I'll let you answer. I know that Children's Mercy has done a lot of work with their Consejo as well and have good information. One thing that I personally would like to learn more about is integrating individuals who speak a language other than English into larger group PFAC meetings. I know that there are hospitals that are doing it. And I think the logistics of that sometimes trip people up. I don't fully understand them. So I'd love to learn more about that. But Katie, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, you can call me Pam. So I was just going to say Children's Mercy Kansas City has a fantastic, and I think they've been around for many years, Spanish language based. Like if you're speaking English, you have the interpreter at the meeting. They are amazing. We are actually standing up a Spanish language advisory group here in Boston. But I will say, this is the third year. We have, so 2.5 years ago, we welcomed a Portuguese speaking family member to our FAC and had to figure out the logistics for that. So through simultaneous interpretation and for meetings, it allows us to conduct our meetings in multiple languages. Zoom allows up to 7 languages, I think. And then we have to build in time for translation stuff ahead of time, but it is well worth it.
Thank you so much, Katie. We are being prompted to leave the breakout group, but gosh, thank you everyone for your questions and for sharing. I hope we can all continue to learn together. I am very passionate about this, so please always reach out because I would love to learn from and with you as we all continue in this work. Thank you all.
And Pam, some of those
Thank you.
questions that were asked, if you can reach back to the people for specifics and get back to us, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.